Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna. I said I wasn't going to come on, but I decided to come on today after a long day of work because I wanted to have this conversation real quick. So for those who just joined us, welcome to the discussion. When I was young, my mother used to say, I have a bone to pick with you, right? Whenever she said that, we already knew what time it was. She was about to beef with it. I got a bone to pick with the general public. It's that, over the last, I would say, 2 decades, I have been advocating for healing. And why healing is important is because once we deal with the issues that we have personally, interpersonally, collectively, then we can no longer be played with or toyed with. But what is happening now is that there has been a whole commodification of trauma by our own people, exploiting the spaces that we are lacking for monetary gain, which is crazy to me because if at large, on both sides of the spectrum, male and female, if at large we were to deal with some of these things, what's going on, Judah? This wouldn't be the case. Now I'm going to go a little bit down memory lane because the Kevin Samuels conversation is still going on. And truth be told, Kevin Samuels wouldn't have had such a stronghold had people been vested into dealing with their own issues as opposed to entertainment, right? They opened the door. We, the people, men and women, opened the door to this type of character. And I'm about to show real quick, what's going on, Ella? That, it's something that we, the people at large, allowed. We think because of the trauma of liking to see people defaced, liking to see people torn down. I mean, people could say, no, we don't like it. But yes, indeed, people do. There's a million channels about getting tea. There's a million channels about gossiping. And these are the channels in this space and time that allow people to enrich themselves. So we can see that our appetite is a direct connection to what we're advancing as a community. Now, I was listening to this leftover conversation and it sounded weirdly familiar. I'm not even going to talk as much. I'm going to show you a few things, because if we are as astute as we say we are, that I know that we could be, we wouldn't be surprised when these type of conversations come up. Now, I don't know how many people remember, like, last year sometime having the leftover conversation. If you don't remember, don't worry. I'm going to refresh your memory, because just 2 weeks ago, Kevin Samuels has the internet in an uproar about calling women over 35 leftovers. But if we allowed ourselves to be culturally educated, we would realize that he wholesale lifted that thought process from communist China. And we actually talked about it on this channel. There's documentaries about it all over YouTube. What's going on, Nasha? Yet still, people are still triggered. I'm confused. Maybe y'all can help me out today. Maybe you can help me out. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen just so we could take a little trip down memory lane. Thank you, John. I would have to agree with you. This is nothing new, but the people, what he was doing, he did the same thing with domestic discipline. What he's doing is what he did, and what others like him are going to continue to do, is to go around to find the spot. You know how you go to the doctor and the doctor's feeling around to see where it hurts. And when they find a spot that hurts, they just keep pressing it. Why? Because the more you interface, is the more they get in the algorithm, is the more money is spent, is the more they're enriched by your trauma and your pain. It's just like in certain places in the West. The sicker you are, is the richer the institutions become. So actually, the people are giving themselves up to be led like sheep to slaughter, right? So let's see the offensive thing that people like, oh my goodness, it's so offensive. I can't believe he said this. And I'm like, bro, where are we? Are we on the same YouTube internet? Because the same he appeared to have been, and those like him, like, let me see what's going on in other places. A lot of the issues that are being brought up, Catholic, are not any different, like we talked about on this channel and in other spaces, than what's happening in other places. Things that people are trying to pin wholly on the so-called Black community is not a Black community sole issue. Goldie Jones, what's going on? Welcome to the chat, right? So let's check out what he was saying, the latest, let me dazzle razzle them. And then let's look at how old this concept was, right? So I'm going to share this. Not going to be long.
35 years old and you're unmarried, but if you have made it to 35 years old and you're unmarried, you are a leftover woman. A leftover woman. You are what is left. Men know that there's something likely wrong with you. Whether you want to hear it or not, I'm going to just go there with you. I'm telling you the truth that you don't want to hear. Men know that.
Well, let's tell the truth that you don't want to hear. You borrowed that concept from China. We already had that conversation, but for the sake of time and for the sake of just putting it on record, that was recent, yeah? So let's show when actually we had that conversation over here on this channel. He dropped the whole leftover thing 2 weeks ago, and everybody's like, oh my goodness, he called us leftovers, right? We had the conversation over here, here. We're going to look at the time and date. Remember these? This is when I was in the car. I don't have time like that anymore. But we were doing noteworthy, right? Modern leftover women and surplus men. Look at the date. Almost a year to date. May 19th, 2021. Right? But because there's not a lot of hoopla, because there's not a lot of sensationalism, and they didn't and we're trained to respond to hoopla and sensationalism. When information is packaged in a certain way, a lot of times we the people, we don't process it. And it's only when somebody is offensive, then we're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they just said that. And basically this one, I went over what was being said of a documentary coming out of India. I love this lady, this broadcaster from India. She's hilarious. But this is an Indian news station. If you don't check them out because their news is funny. Let me see. I forgot the name of the station again. Hold on.
In the late 1970s,
Gravitas.
the idea was to reduce the growth of Chinese population. The policy turned out to be a disaster. It left China with a population that's old and shrinking. In 2015, China relaxed its one-child policy. It allowed couples to have 2 kids. How generous. China's state-owned...
Yo, she's mad facetious. But who remembers this noteworthy session? She is reviewing So what was happening in China, one of my contentions of people who adhere to certain type of ideologies is that they don't want to honestly deal with the source of the issue. This conversation that we had, and I'll leave the link in the box because we already had the conversation, is that the issue of what the Chinese government termed leftover women, right, was a smear campaign. It was an agenda to try to, the same thing, shame, guilt, and all of this other thing, these women into marrying not so suitable men. Right. And so she basically goes on to, we know about the one child policy and how they were killing and sending young girls off to the orphanages, which created a shortage of women. So I'm unsure how you have a surplus of men and a shortage of women, but the women become left over. Again, this is all psychology, right? So, just stirring the pot a little bit and bringing this information like it's new is just one of the, basically playing the people like a fiddle. That's why I put that in the title, like, ooh, what can I say now that's going to rile the masses, right? Let me see, stop sharing here. Another one of the same things was the domestic discipline. I don't know who remembers the domestic discipline conversation. Um, the domestic discipline conversation was something that was being had in many spaces. But people, you have to be careful with people who cherry pick and go all around cherry picking things out of context. Because if they do it in such a situation like that, why won't they do it for statistics? Why won't they do it for other things? Is somebody trying to psychologically manipulate you? So they're only going to skew the information in a certain light so that they can evoke emotion. And we know once people can get you to feel or evoke emotion, then they can control you. I'm just setting the tone for this conversation. Then I'm going to open up the mic. So as it related to the domestic discipline one, if you remember, we also covered that where he came on the Lapeef. And this is not just him. Like, people just solely concentrate on him, but there's so many other, quote, Kevin Samuels, that are espousing very dangerous doctrines because they're essentially repeating what they heard, or they're talking from their brokenness. Right. And so instead of dealing the things that you need to do to fix yourself, I'd rather go around trying to control everybody else. Right. That's usually the thought. So as it related to that domestic discipline, this is a younger Amuna, but I just want you to look down here at the time, the what is this here? Domestic discipline. This is when I had time for YouTube, y'all. I had time for YouTube, but I don't got much time. This was how many years ago? This was back in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, right? Talking about domestic discipline. So the moment I heard it repeated, I knew exactly where it was coming from. Part of the issue is we have tunnel vision in the so-called Black community. This is back when you had to do Google Hangouts, right? We have tunnel vision. And because we have tunnel vision oftentimes and think everything is about us and we're offended and this and that, we're unable to see when somebody's running game for monetary gain, running game. Okay. So when I heard certain things, I was like, I know exactly where this is coming from. In the same way with the leftover women, the context that China ran this whole leftover women game is the same reason why it's being brought up. I think I talked about it, but I'll talk about it briefly. And there's documentaries on it as well. Is that the parents who did not abort their daughters, as per the government, they were more middle class or well off. And so they educated these daughters. They went to the cities and they educated these daughters. The ones that were in the village and the country, oftentimes they had abortions or they sent the daughters off to orphanages and things of that nature. So when this maturation of that generation comes, which is now, there is a shortage of suitable women to marry, because of what happened when they were born. And because the parents educated these women, their standard is higher. It's the same thing that's happening in the so-called Black community. It doesn't mean that this is solely a Black issue. It's an issue, some would say, that once the woman wants more and desires more, the bar is set so high that the male is not able to reach it. And so what do? You convince the fox to cut off its tail. We went over that parable. I think we did on this channel. We did. You convinced the fox to cut off his tail. So all of this, what is happening for me psychologically, because I've been through the process and I've tried to tell everybody the importance of going through this process, is to realize when somebody's trying to run game on you. I can't reach that high. So I'm going to convince you. And I'm not saying that some women are not out of bounds. Absolutely 100%. Some of the stuff I'm seeing is absolutely ridiculous. And that comes with a level of self worship for men and women and hubris, right? When people oftentimes step away from the creator, I'm just going to have to put that in there because this is my perspective. When you step away from the creator, you lose a level of humility. People start to think that they are the center of the universe, that things are all about them, right? The boss chick, the high value. And then we realize that we are but dust, right? We are but a vapor. And things like this bring. So when you step away from that element, which a lot of people, they were in the church or wherever they were, and they step away from a level of spirituality that keeps you grounded, that also is what's contributed to the issue. It's not just education, it's a loss of spirituality and humility, and people feeling as though they don't need the other one. It said it's not good that man shall be alone, but people have stepped outside of that and they've now become the man. I'm like, so there's not just one issue in my estimation that's happening. There's a lot of things that are coming together to cause what we are seeing in present day and time. People also, this is a throwaway culture. So if you don't like what you have, you throw it away and you get something else. So if you compare yourself to your grandparents' generation, who, if their shoe bottom went out, they went to the cobbler to get a new shoe bottom to fix the leather. They went to the tailor or the seamstress to sew them an outfit. Things took time. Furniture took time. Shoes took time. But we live in a fast-paced culture where we don't see the process of what it takes to bring something about. And we take that concept and mentality, that microwave concept, to the now. We bring it to relationships and people. I don't like that person, so I'm just going to throw them away. Right? You don't like, instead of coming and talking to people, we've lost that. We've lost that ability to connect with one another, and therefore it leads to what we're experiencing now. And a lot of these people, Kevin Samuels as well as others included, are boiling it down solely to monetary things, and that doesn't get it either, right? So I just wanted to do a little trip down memory lane, because just because one that sprung up is no longer doesn't mean that many other people are not going to come with the same tactics and methods to both on both sides to convince one another to lower your value so that you can get it at a bargain. I think there is a scripture that says that talks about, I don't even want to mess it up. Hold on, let me get it. 1 second. Hold on. It talks about when somebody's bargaining, because people like to talk about the marketplace and saying, oh, it's not worth it. Oh, it's not worth it. And then when you walk away, you're laughing because you got a deal. Right. So if you ever go to market, if you're in the marketplace or you ever go to these places, you may really want something, but you're going to bargain the person down because you think, I don't want to pay that for that. I want it, but I don't want to pay it. Right. And so you can, oh, here goes a crack. Oh, no, I saw such and such, so that you can pay less. And then you go bragging to your friends and family, look what I got for less. You know what I mean? So that's a level of a mentality of people that are not willing to do what it takes, but they also want the benefits. That boils down to human nature, right? So I'm gonna share the link. I want to know your thoughts on, have you come across some of this stuff? If you didn't hear it here, did you hear it in other spaces? Can you see the mind game, and why do you think so many people are falling for it? I told you why I think it's certain traumas that they refuse to address, and so it's easier to be upset with somebody. That's why a lot of men are like, he was talking a lot of truth. There's a lot of things that people refuse to address, and when they hear it from someone else, good, bad, or indifferent, it's easier to get angry at that person than it is to deal with what's going on inside of them. So I'm gonna come look at some of these comments. I put the link in the box, and yeah, I'm not gonna stay too long because I was tired today. Yeah, I agree with John that that's where it was coming from. It's China. And it's funny, he doesn't cite his sources. So a lot of people don't cite their sources, where they're all like, they come up with a concept and act like they came up with the concept. If you don't know, I'm not going to tell you. Cite your sources. Let people know that this is a communist China thought process, and give them the backstory. Don't just throw it on people and then just move around a few of the parameters to make it look like, oh yeah, I was sipping and came up with this stuff. They call them cat ladies. I'm done. That's crazy. A woman 27 over not married is not because she's strong and independent. Did you say strong, true diamond? It's because she hasn't found the right person. And that's another thing. I mean, I do understand it. And especially you also see it in India. In recent times, I watched a documentary coming out of Australia where they had a lot of East Indians that resettled in Australia. And one of the things they have is social pressure from the family that after you get they send you to school, you go past 25, 26. Now they're having expectations, right? They're having expectations that, hey, this is the next step, this is the next logical step in life. But to a large degree, some of that infrastructure has fallen away. And I would agree that society, especially in the West, and it's not just for so-called black women, society has told the woman, hey, you know what, you don't have to worry about that. So she doesn't worry about it. She decides to go through her 20s and go through her 30s. And then when it starts to come into her remembrance, she feels pressured. So, with that, I would agree that society also has played a role in women thinking, I can just keep pushing, pushing, pushing it back. There's a lot of things that have been thrown off balance, but I would venture to say because there initially was an imbalance. Like the pendulum is swinging. It's not just, oh, women began to X, Y, and Z. It's a movement, a cause and an effect. And oftentimes when people, oh, it was back in the 60s. No, it was before that. There had to be pressure on one side in order for this pendulum to be swinging so far on the other side. I said it before, and shout out to those who just joined us, that when we look at World War I, when the women, black, white, and everything came out of the houses, we went over this. I think we did. If we need to, we could go over it again. When they needed the women, and this is another thing about manipulation. When the men needed the women to step in to manufacturing roles during the World War I and World War II, there was also a campaign. We could go look at that. The Rivet, what's the name of the woman? What was it? The same picture that everybody looks and
Rosie the
use
Riveter.
feminism. That was a campaign. I forgot her name. I watched the whole documentary on it and everything. They gave her a name, right? That was a whole campaign. That was government officials. That was people saying, we need to convince these women to come out of the house because we need them in the workforce. And when the men came back, they made another campaign to convince the women to get out the workforce and go back in the house. And when World War II came, they did it again. Well, it was difficult to do it again after World War II, but nobody wants to talk about why they decided to come out in the first place and why it's all a level of manipulation. Because if I need you, then if I don't need you, you need to just go back and do what you was doing. It doesn't always work like that. It doesn't always work like that. We have Naasha and Elif in the house. Elif, what's going on?
Hey, what's up? How you doing? You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's going on,
Oh,
brother?
okay. Man, I was thinking about what you said, like, about the situation yesterday, and I was like, man, I don't know the, I don't know if it's a good, like, cause I personally, I wasn't like feeling like celebrating about the guy leaving, but I kind of felt like, however, that voice got stopped was a good thing because it was not a good voice, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I thought about it later, and I was like, this dude, he could probably, reach another status because he passed away, because that's what people do now. When somebody
Yeah,
dies,
that's
they
what they
like
do. That's true.
they raise them up, yeah. But yeah, no, absolutely, like everything you said. Oh, that was Rosie the Riveter, I think you was talking about, right?
Yes, Rosie the Riveter. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, but all right. The victim
Yeah.
mentality is like some everybody. I don't know what's so attractive about it. Like I was talking to this about like one of my, I forget who I was talking to this. Oh yeah, I was talking to this about one of my friends. I was like whenever something happens, like no matter what it is, and this may sound insane, right? If I'm in a car accident and if somebody hits me, I'm not gonna like, oh, woe is me, think it just happened to me. I'm gonna, this may sound crazy, right? But I'm gonna mentally try to figure out some way to take responsibility, as like I should have had my head on a swivel. I should have seen him coming. I should have slowed down, or even something really outrageous where I could have left a little bit earlier. And that may sound unreasonable to somebody, but that's just the way that I can maintain some type of power in my life. But if I'm
Mm.
just walking around like, you know, woe is me, things are just happening to me, I'm so helpless, then I'm gonna be helpless. You know,
Right.
I just can't operate like that. That's why I remember when Rick Wallace came on your show on
Right.
your channel, he was talking like that, and that's what resonated with me. I was like, oh, I like this guy. All right, but yeah, it's a common thing. Like one of my, I was telling you before, one of my brothers, like out of nowhere, this is after you started showing, like, cause I heard about Kevin Samuels, but I never really paid attention to him. And then when you started putting the videos out about him, that's when I started
Hmm.
really listening to what he was talking about. And then my brother, months later, was like, "Have you ever heard of Kevin?" I was like, "Oh no, right?" But yeah, that's the type man. He has that same like if it's not the black woman, it's first of all, it's always the white man. You know what I mean? A white man,
Right.
white man, this, that, and third. Or it's the Mex, because I live in Southern California. There's a lot of Mexican people, so the Mexican people are worse than the white man, this, that, and third. Or
Right.
it's the Asian man, and then if it's then it's the black woman, and then sometimes he'll be like, excuse my language, but he'll be like, look at them niggas over there or something. It's
Right.
like, damn, everybody is just is you know what I mean? Like it's
Hmm.
I don't know, man. It's just crazy to me. But man, I remember my dad. I mean my brother was having a conversation, and my mom was sitting right there, and we were talking about. He was talking about that. Those those same like talking points all the time. Like the woman wanted to do this, that, and the third, and feminism caused her to come out of the home. And I was like, nah, because I personally witnessed the situation in my own household where there was a woman. Uh, I'll just say my mom. She have I don't want to talk bad about. I love both my parents. You know what I mean? But there was a certain time where like my dad would be and my mom, my dad weren't having a very good relationship, and my dad would say little wild stuff to my mom. And my both my parents were from third world countries, so it's not a situation where like my mom could just up and be like, "I'm out of here. I'm going back
Right.
to my," you know what I mean? So it's kind of like a hostage situation,
Right.
So like he's saying all this, and he's like, "Yeah, woman, she just want this, that, and the third." And I'm like, maybe those women heard from their mothers that don't depend on no man because he'll lord over you, and whatever. And he's like, no, that's not it. That doesn't happen. It's these new age women and this, that, and the third. And my mom is sitting right there, and she's like, what the hell are you talking about? You know what I mean? And then he just like, oh, no. He just his whole tune changed up because it's like this is an example right before you. My mom is not
Right.
that type of woman, and she's like, yeah, if I had a daughter, I'll tell her to go out there and get it herself too. But yeah, he just I don't know, he just not seeing they he they just listening to this dude. You know what I mean? He just
Right.
preaching to the choir, and they're not seeing that. I don't get it, man. It's so obvious.
It is obvious for those, like you said. I think, firstly, what you brought up is different mentalities. There was a book that's called the Celestine Prophecies, but one of the parts in the book, it talks about how we get our energy, right? There are different types of people, and there are different ways in which we get our energy, right? They call it control
Right.
dramas.
Okay.
One of which is the poor me. So the poor me individual is like what you're talking about. They're going to look for everything and everyone, the chronic complainer, in their environment to blame for their current condition. Because when they're in that mode, people are paying and listening, paying attention, and that's how they get energy. Consider people like plants. We need energy. Now, the question is, how are you getting your energy? Are you getting it from the sun? Is it hydroponic? You understand what I'm saying? Is it
Yeah.
solar? Is it wind? So all of these different type of personalities we're seeing, and people who flock to them, seem to get their energy in the same way, right? To look and be self-reflective, like what you're talking about, like how you can't see it, is I have to is something that causes an awareness that oftentimes, if you are aware, you can no longer start to blame, like you said, blame everybody in your environment. You're going to have to look at yourself and say, how do I play into this? That's too much like right though, Lamine. That's too much like being responsible. You feel me?
Hmm.
And so a lot of people don't want to take that level of responsibility because sometimes, in truth, the ego cannot take it. If the ego is damaged, right? If the person's self perception is based on how others see them, right, and right, wrong, or indifferent, and they're not strong enough. It's like, are you strong enough to go into surgery? Are you strong enough to do this detox? Are you strong enough to look at yourself and not fall apart? And there are some people who are not strong enough to do that, so they would rather look outside and find other reasons as to why they're being held back, or
I,
not
I
able
don't
to achieve their goals. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think they're not strong enough. Maybe they just don't believe that. You know what I mean? Because I believe we all got the potential to do something
Oh,
great.
we
It's
do
just
have the potential, but I agree, but they may think they're not. Because
yeah,
remember, we're all coming from, first of all, we're all born, although we're similar, we're also different. And people have different temperaments, different ways in which we interface with the reality around us. And if they didn't get what they needed to, or it's not already within them, some people may feel like they can't do it. What would make another person stronger would break the other person. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
that, especially when coming back to melanated people, there's a level of learned helplessness. If you look at a video that goes into learned helplessness, they did and I'm coming to you, Nasha. Thank you for your patience. They did a test. I don't know if you guys saw the video. As a matter of fact, it is a video where they're in a classroom and one set of students got a bum test, like the teacher messing around with them. And so the other set of students got the right test. And every time the student answered, every time they got it wrong or felt rejected, their self-esteem, you could visibly see them shrinking. Right. So if you live in an environment where things were taken from you on a constant basis, where people chided you, disrespected you, did all of these things to you as a collective as a constant basis, that's internal. That's still within the individual. That's within the DNA, within the epigenetics. And if the people don't work on it, that's the vibration, that's the energy frequency that they're resonating on. This is
it's
why
just
somebody who can talk to you in such a demeaning way gets so much attention,
yeah.
because it's
It
normalized.
it's just confusing to me. It's like I thought everybody learned it. Well, I thought we should have learned at an early age, right? When a baby is born, baby can't communicate, baby cries to get what it wants, right? But after a certain point, that doesn't work anymore. You know what I mean? Like I look at the baby like, baby, you could talk, or I'm the baby, right? The baby, they looking at me like, nah, you could talk, or I told you to pick up your toys before you go outside, and I know you could do that. So all that crying is not gonna work.
Mhm.
I at a certain point, we supposed to realize, I could complain, I cry all that I want. Is just gonna give me a headache, and whatever task I need to get done, it's not gonna get the crying is not gonna it's not gonna fix it, right?
Right.
So it's just confusing to me, like how do people not
But
get that at,
But
at
for
the
some
point?
people, it no longer becomes like you're saying about the baby. If you redirect the child and you let them know the crying is not going to get it, then that's one thing. But if you as a parent say they start crying and you're like, "Oh my goodness, baby, what's wrong?" and you're giving, remember, they want your attention and you're giving it to them, they're going to realize, "Okay, when I do this, when I complain, I get heard." So it all depends on, even in the beginning, how the child is trained, how that soul is taught to deal with whatever it is that they're dealing with. It's early today, for instance. I did a brunch. It's a real story, it just happened, and I'm gonna come to Nasha. So a woman came in with two children, and she's asking the children, "What would you like?" And she's begging the son. I said, "You guys could taste the juice and tell me if you like it, and then we'll go from there." She's begging this boy to take a sip. And I'm looking at her like, what?
Yeah,
But that goes to show the way the mother trained and interfaced with that child. He realizes that if I play this game, then she's going to come further into me. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what she did. So I just
hmm
said, "Hey, you want some water?" You know what I mean? Why are you sitting here begging him to take a sip? Clearly, he doesn't want it. But like, that's what I'm saying. This is where we get, for me, in my thoughts, this is where we get those ideas from.
the
They come
formative
from
years.
early on in childhood.
Yeah,
But we're gonna come back. We're gonna go to
all right.
Nyasha and hear her thoughts. We're gonna come back. Stay on. I mean, Elif, we're gonna go to Nyasha. Share your thoughts.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings,
I
greetings.
just wanted
Yes.
to comment that I find it very interesting that you take an example of a country that have um, one of the highest suicide rate on women.
Mm-hmm.
In China and India, women commit more suicide than men, and mm, it's I think it's clearly proven that this system does not work.
Right.
Yes. So this is just what I found very interesting, and
And and I want to thank you for bringing that up. This is what I mean by cherry picking out of, like you're saying, if you don't look at all, somebody else said the other day, the old ways, if you don't look at all of what's going on as a result of the practices that you have, you're doing yourself and others that you're introducing this information to a disservice, right? Because you're not looking at the effects, like you said, suicide rate, like girls running away because they don't want to marry the old person that their family is forcing them to. Like I saw a young girl, she ran away from they took her to Australia and they were going to marry her off in an arranged marriage. She ran away to England, to England. Yeah, she ran away to England, and they had to like house her in this because they're like, what is going on? So, you know, it's not what we're making it out to be. And I think we're setting ourselves up if we're not going to be intellectually honest about the other things. Like I said, they were talking about the continent, and you wasn't here the other day, Nasha, but they were talking about the continent as if there are not issues that are existing on the continent, right? And so I'm like, we really have to stop doing that. And oftentimes it's people who've never been. They're just reimagining or romanticizing what things could be like when women X, Y, and Z. There are
Wow.
there are a lot of women who are impoverished. There are a lot of people who can't afford, to clothe their children and there's no necessarily welfare system like it is here in America or in the West. You know what I mean? Like I remember when I was in Ethiopia, it's not funny, but I had questions. This lady was actually renting a baby and sitting on the roadside, because I'm like, how come every day sitting on the roadside every day and literally begging, literally washing her clothes in the square like that? You had to depend on uh the goodwill of the people that's round about you. It's not what you people think. There's a lot of things that come along with it. In some places in India, when the man dies, even the old man who took up a young girl, she is out, she's an outcast because she's thought to have been the one who killed her husband. I saw this young girl, she couldn't be more than 12, and she's a widow who's has to beg for the rest of her life and can never remarry because she killed her husband, cousin, quote unquote. So people who are doing this can be and are dangerous if they're not giving people the whole story, right?
And
But let me know your thoughts.
the suicide thing she just brought up, that remind me of something that was said the other day. I think the guy, I don't know, I know him as Unity Ghost, but
Hmm.
he changed his channel fighting for fatherhood. He brought up the fact that black man had like the highest suicide rate. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is true, um, I also know that something that Rick says commonly on his channel is that black women have like they're like multiple the times I mean the rate that they get murdered at is like
Yes,
multiple times many other racial groups of women,
yes.
and it's mainly by their
Intimate
spouses.
partner violence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's so we got
intimate
black men
partner violence.
killing one another in the streets. We got black men killing their other half, and then they kill themselves. So who's the common factor in all these
Denominator.
situations?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Somebody, the black, we have anger issues. We have violence issues. What I
I
can't I don't understand the connection between men committing suicide and black women as if that's their fault. Like I didn't get that correlation that he was trying to make.
I agree with you. I actually just saw it just happened recently. No, they actually just charged the man recently. This man, if I gotta go find back the news report, he was melanated. He had a girlfriend, and then he impregnated another girl, and he wanted this girl to abort. Okay, we talked about abortion on this channel. There's a lot of stuff people don't want to talk about, but we want to get up in arms about anyway. So the girl didn't want to do it. So you know what he did? He killed her and the child, the unborn
Oh wow.
child. He just got 40 years. He just got 40 years. So, like you're saying, and I've covered one or two of those cases here where the intimate partner violence, like the other young girl who was in school in Chicago to become a nurse, and the guy comes to the parking lot and he kills her. You know what I mean? So we have to, if we're gonna have the conversation, it can't be slanted. And when I realized, if for in the case of Kevin Samuels and those like him, when the conversation starts to go in a way where it's going to be more holistic, the people get cut off. Right? I don't want to hear about that. Who cares about that? Why? Because it's going to start to shed light on the other issues that are contributing to the overall problem. If the woman is not listening, you have to ask yourself why. If she's not trusting you, you have to ask why, right? What is
Mhm.
going on? If that's not her natural, what is going on? If she's not trusting you and she wants to go get her own. Now, I must say, people have gone far and beyond. As long as those eyelashes are that people are rocking these days, they're far and beyond. You know what I mean? You OD. You did way too
I know
much.
exactly what you're talking about.
But it started from the grandmother or the mother saying, "Don't end up like me, baby. Go and do something so that you don't have to subject yourself to X, Y, and Z." You know what I mean?
But
And if, go,
sister,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I don't want to cut you off. What scares me is when I listen to men, even to Dr. Rick Wallace, they always say the woman chose those men. And I always think myself, okay, we should marry young, you know, don't marry over 35. Women have no experience, so we need to be expert about everything. At 20 years old already, we should know
Right,
everything.
right, right, right.
When it says the proper man, we should be psychologists to know to scan a man. And everyone who knows abuse, it does not start by killing. It starts like, you know, when I look at this whole system now of this C-19, people just started 2 years ago with, okay, wear the mask, you know, the thing wear the mask, and then now you need to take just one shot.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Now we take, this is how abuse starts.
Yes,
And more than half of the people fall for it. What does it teaching us? People are not trained to see abusers.
that's
So
fact.
why are we putting all this responsibility on women?
That's a good point.
Who,
I
wait,
don't
by the
understand.
way, who you don't think should get more than an associate's degree? So, like you said, where is her wisdom coming from? Where's her discernment coming from? How is she able to discern? Like you said, I think it's a perfect example. People just, I saw grown adults for the last 2 years. I'm like, bruh, first they said one, then they said two. No, first they said you didn't need any. Then they said put one, two, or as many as you can. Then one booster, two booster. How about 10? And then, oh, you know what? I changed my mind. How about none? You understand?
Man,
So it's like what you're saying. It's difficult to navigate, and it's unfair to wholly put the responsibility on the shoulders of people who are learning in the very way that you're learning. In the same way she's learning, the man is learning to be a man. He doesn't just appear being a man. Experience in life is what grows you up and matures you into being who you were created to be. But that allowance is not there. Like, she's supposed to know how to be a mother. There's a lot of people like, you're a woman, you're supposed to know how to be a mother. That's not true. That's not fully true. Certain things you need to learn in the same way the man needs to learn. So, hopefully
the
these well balanced. Go ahead, let me go ahead, Ella.
the to what she just brought up made me think about the way in which homie had passed away, and maybe it could have been a Red Bull. Maybe there been an increased occurrence of certain heart conditions lately. Well, according to news reports, I don't know if they're factual,
Right.
but they say myocarditis or whatever. But anyways, I kind of disagree with you on that one. Nash. I get what you're saying. It like a person does need to know, be taught how to um distinguish, discern and choose, but at the same time, if I'm gonna be that way, if I'm a, because I hear this constantly, right? Like, oh man, you don't understand, my baby mama do this and the court do this and child support do this and do that. It's like, all right, bro, but you acting like she just put a baby on you, like she just held you down and raped you or something, like, you know what I mean? Like, I personally never heard of that happening to a man, so I understand it's a different situation with a woman, but I'm not talking about those types of situations. I'm talking about in a consensual situation, right? So if I'm gonna be fair enough, when I hear my brother say something like that, be like, bro, you kind of jumped into that situation, so you kind of gotta, you know, You made the bed, now laying it type. And if I'm gonna be like that with the man, I gotta do the same thing with the women as
You
long as it's a
it's
consensual
okay. It's
situation.
funny you mentioned that. Keep talking because that is a video that now I can't remember. I came across a video like that where the man said similar to what he basically said something and that you touched on. He said if he saw a random woman in a supermarket and if he knew that there was no way for him to get in trouble for cheating, that he would approach the woman and lay with her. Just a random woman.
Hmm.
So, like what you're saying, there's a disconnect between your action, the initial action, and what happens, what follows. Oftentimes, men absorb themselves of the fact that you chose consciously to engage, but they don't like what comes after part of the responsibility. They feel like there should be some after you engage, you should be able to escape responsibility some way, somehow. If not, then it's unfair. And I agree with you on this one, Ella. That's weird to me unless she roofied you, you know what I mean? Especially unless she gave you the Spanish fly, how are you hollering when you willingly went with someone who you didn't even know? Well, that's my thoughts on that. It's but go ahead. I'll see if I could find that video.
Yeah, when I bring that type of stuff up, it gets quiet. Dudes just be like, "Man, shut up, man." Like, for real. Nobody wants to hear like, "Well, you met her and y'all was." I asked one of my homies, like, he was talking about his baby mom, and I was like, "How long? How did y'all? How long did y'all start having sex?" We didn't start having sex immediately. It was like 2 weeks. I was like, "Are you serious, bro? You didn't have start having sex immediately? It was two. You acting like that's a long time. I guess in today's terms, that is a long time, right? But that's crazy to me. You don't know anything about this person. You know what I mean? That goes on both ends. For man and women. You don't know anything about this dude. You don't know anything about this family, this woman. You don't know, like, what could you possibly learn about a person in a, I don't know, conversation? Because that's all it takes nowadays. Like, you just talk to somebody one time in an inebriated state, not even in the best state of mind. You already under the influence of something, so your judgment is poor. So I don't know, man. No, nobody wants to hear that though. And I'm not gonna sit up here and act like I'm totally absolved. I mean, I'm better than these dudes. I've made mistakes, but that's the difference. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm gonna make that mistake and the consequence comes, maybe not when I was younger. You know what I mean? When I was younger, I probably didn't have this type of mentality. I might have, played the victim or something like that. But now, if something happens, regardless of what happens, it's like, you know, I don't like that this happened. I don't like the consequence, but I got to deal with it. There's no way out of it. And me sitting around complaining is not gonna work. Like, like what I said before. Like, if I get into an accident, if I get into a fight, you know what I mean. If you didn't punch me, I let you punch me. You know what I mean? If we're playing basketball, you didn't score on me, I let you score on me. Because if anything, like, if we're fighting, I could have blocked, I could have stepped back, I could have talked my way out of the conflict before it happened, or whatever. I could have just not came around if I know that I might have an issue with you. But they think that that's crazy, right? But I think that I think the opposite is crazy. Like, you just walk around throughout life, and like a lightning bolt could just strike you at. You know what I mean? Like, that's how you view life. That stuff just happens to you. I think that is insane. I just can't get it. But they think that I'm crazy for saying the stuff that I do. I was having an argument with a dude. He was like, "No, man, you cannot control everything in life." I didn't say I could control everything, but I can control the way I view it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It took time though. You know what I mean? Like, I got introduced this way of thinking by somebody older than me. I had to listen to somebody, but that's not something that everybody want to do. They, people don't really want to listen to nobody, especially their elders, right?
And
So
there we go. I did find one of the videos, like you said, there's a lot. I think, there's a lot. But I did find one of the videos to what you were talking about the violence. And if you're going to name one statistic, you also have to look at the other. And this one was, I think it was a few days ago. It was updated. No, April 25th. So let's take a quick look because it's short, just so that we can illustrate what we're talking about and why a one sided conversation is not going to help us progress. So let me share my screen here. Go back over the other side. No, not video file. Hold on. How's everybody else doing in the chat? The link is in the box. I'm not going to stay too long, but Come on. Hold on, let me. Oh, I didn't put it over here. Hold on a second. Here it is.
All of that fat pocket that was here, that huge pocket, is just gone.
YouTube be tripping on these ads. Hold on. Hours. Okay. All right, here we go. We like to get all hyped up. We like that church vibe, but that ain't getting it right now.
After walking into a local sheriff's office with his partner and two children, authorities say a man in North Carolina killed them and set their home on fire before killing himself.
Since they moved in, which was approximately 2 years ago, we've never had a call at their house. We've never had a 911 call from their house. We've never had a deputy respond at their house.
The sheriff of Davie County says 26-year-old Ishad Ewing Meeks shot and killed his partner, 26-year-old Ashton Brown, and their two children, 4-year-old Bella and 8-month-old Brooks. He says Ewing Meeks was also found dead of a gunshot wound with the gun still in his hand. Authorities.
What are we doing? What is really going on? 26-year-old. I mean, like you're talking about, you had this child when you were 22. You fathered this child. And you have a toddler. And not only did you take the life of the woman, your partner, the two children, and then yourself.
He said Ewing Meeks and his family turned up at the sheriff's office asking to speak with a deputy, but he was vague about what he wanted to discuss. Surveillance video shows them leaving 4 minutes later. About 20 minutes later, investigators say Brown called 911 saying she wanted to speak with a deputy. A deputy called her back 10 minutes later, and Brown said she had a safety concern.
What do you need to take an offer about? I just needed to speak with them about a safety reason.
Authorities say the call was disconnected. Just over an hour later, a passerby reported that the house where the family lived was on fire. And when firefighters put out the flames, they discovered the bodies. The sheriff says the investigation continues. A GoFundMe account has been set up seeking help paying for funeral expenses and has already exceeded its goal.
What is really going on? So the people are over here arguing about whatever they're arguing about, man. And look at somewhere who there's so much I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Did they have a support system? Was this guy overburdened? Like I said, did he know how to be a man? How did you kill her, your children, yourself, and burn down the house? What's going on in your mind?
I heard that. I was listening to I think a couple of months ago Philip Matthew, and he said something that could make. He said when the men mostly kill the woman, sometimes the woman is the one provoking him, on killing her. But she uses her mouth, the man uses strength. I don't know if this could be true, because putting the blame on the woman, I don't know, or maybe the woman is the one, provoking him to kill him. But somehow in this situation, the woman always end up dead.
It's true in certain situations, but it's still unwarranted though. You know what I mean? Like I've been in certain situations where women start slapping me, hitting me, and I can see in her eyes, she like want me to fight with her or something like that. But it's up to me to either engage in that or just walk away, because there's nothing like like there's some women that hit hard. Don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like I done got my bell rung by a female a couple times before, but like uh, she not gonna kill me. You know what I mean? Like I've been hit by dudes, like they didn't kill me. So it's up to the man still. So yeah, I don't know.
So then I have a question. Is this an issue of lack of self-control? Like,
Mm.
to be able to control yourself. He who can control himself is better than a strong man who could take a city, right? Is this a lack of self-control, or like you said, being taught or led to understand that the value is in sexual control, mental control, emotional control? Oftentimes you hear men are more governed than women because they're not emotional. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
They just
no.
manifest their emotionals different. Emotionals. They just manifest their emotions different. Their emotions may look differently. That doesn't mean that they're not emotional. So what part of that is playing into a lot of what we're experiencing? We see it even on the computer in the so-called YouTubian space. Like, people have no self-government. Because where in your mind that was this a good idea? Did you snap? Did you have a mental illness? Like, you had to be conscious. If you burnt down the house, what did you do? Burn the house and then shot yourself? Like, what are we talking about here?
I was having a conversation with one woman. She was talking about white man, right? You know, there's the old stereotype that it's only serial killers are white men. I was like, that's not true. And she was like, yeah, it is. Look at the statistics, whatever. I was like, I know serial killers. And she was like, what, you do? I was like, yeah, they're gangbangers. And she was like, oh, well, that's different. I was like, how's that different? They've killed multiple people. That's the definition of a serial killer. And
That
she
is
was like,
true.
yeah, but it's like, you know what I mean? People play these games, but there there's a huge problem with violence amongst, you know what I mean, black men. Like, it's out of hand. But I don't know. People don't want to talk about that.
Exactly. People don't want to talk about that. There's also violence. We see there's violence on so many levels. And again, in other cultures, people like to talk about other cultures. In other cultures, many other cultures, the man does not marry so early on. And the reason is because he has to find his footing, right? So in other cultures, yeah, they try to marry off the woman younger, but the man doesn't marry so early on because he cannot yet maintain himself out here in this world. He has not yet found himself. There's a book I read. I don't know how many people read The Richest Man in Babylon. And in the book, even though it's written like it's supposed to be a story, but it's in antiquity, it's a dope book. It's even on YouTube for free. Anywho, the guy goes out and he gets a certain portion to go out to learn business and enterprise. Oftentimes back in the day, they would educate the man, send him out so he can, they claim, sow his wild oats, but get his footing before he can then say he's capable of running a house. He has to have some know-how. This young man at 22, what levels or stress or pressures were you under? Right, your family looks put together, you look clean, your hair is cut, you don't look, you know what I mean, what people would say, you don't look off, yet you got yourself to the point where you would take the life of how many people? Four, because you took your own life, four souls. I don't know, anybody else have any thoughts on that?
But Mama Emuna, but in these cultures, women have prostitutes. Those young men do not get married, but they have concubines.
Just, yeah, they're out there sowing their oats, but yeah, that's also
Yeah,
true. I
they
was
have
looking.
concubines who they're
Mhm.
playing with. So I, so
I'm
this is what I have my issue with. They have concubines who they're actually experimenting in, like in some Congolese nation.
This is also true. I was looking at financially because oftentimes, if a man is not able financially to do what he needs to do, it's been said that he feels less than. And those frustrations and shortcomings can be projected on the women and children as well because they have needs and he's not able to meet those needs. Therefore, his anger and his wrath is directed towards them, not because it's right, but because he feels like they're adding pressure to him. This is where many men abandon their families or attack their families. It's like very very something to talk about as everybody's running around here talking about marriage and leftovers and dying alone and all of these things, and some people are dying together. They're not dying alone, they're dying together. you know but yeah, to share your closing thoughts if anybody has any at this time. I kind of just wanted to bring some of that. Judah harassing people I mean, not Judah. John, what is John over here saying? I have not been paying attention to the comment section.
Mhm. What I wanted to say was, I know that in Kikuyu culture, the young man would have a way of masturbation, some kind of, and then they would marry young. But they also had elders. Elder, the men were allowed to masturbate, but the women were not allowed to do that. You know, they need to get married first. But they had elders. So they were still married, I think, in the 20s. But of course, they had elder men governing them too. You know, because my issue is if men marry too old, they are using women. This is where my issue is. Because I know
Come again with that. Come again.
of my issue, because I also know a woman named Rokatno, and she promotes men marrying at 35. And she even promotes in in royal households, and men get women to use into prostitutes until they're in the 40s and then marry. So who are women who are run through and women who are virgins who then marry those men? She said, and then they marry virgins at age 40. My question is, so who are those women who are play around
Right.
and who are women who can marry upper class, to say virgin marry upper class men? Who are those women who are upper class and lower class? Who are women who we can use for those men
Right.
until they are ready to get married?
Well, that's the same thing that was being promoted on this side of the water, where the man has options, and the question is, who are these women? Who are the ones who are accumulating the body count? Who's the one you're meeting today and laying with tomorrow? Right. So you can't muddy the waters and then want the waters to be clean. This is where I think the disconnect is. That
And my
did.
issue is,
Mhm.
and that's my last comment is, let's say if we were in Congo, and maybe the thing is our women are not well, Mama Imuna. Half of them have been molested before the age of 80. More half of our women. 60% have been raped before the age of 18. And then we tell our men they should run through those women until their 40s are able to marry. We cannot do that.
Right.
If maybe they were healthy, maybe like in Congo, we can then use older women as experiment for young men until they're in their marriage age. But we cannot do that. That's my yeah.
So, but even another question is, why do people need to become experiments? That's also another, I think that goes back to a level of self control as well. If we understand really about sex and intercourse and the levels of it, just using people as experiment in and of itself is something for me, and that may be extreme, to be revisited, because I think that also contributes to the problem that we're experiencing. We are using the things that we have been gifted in a wrong manner, and that's having a whole fallout, right? Um, Also, in a lot of countries on the continent, there's issue with, like you said, the women are being violated, the issue with birth and healthcare. And a lot of women, I was watching, I forgot what they call it, but I was watching where there are not a lot of clinics close, or the woman tears badly when she's giving birth, and it injures her so that it leads to incontinence, it leads to all manner of things. And then society just disposes of her as if she has no value, because of the things that her body went through, because of not having the proper systems in place to make sure that she gets care. There are all kind of things to consider when people are just throwing all of these whimsical ideas around in the universe. People don't
Yes,
realize that
yes, yes.
what they say
There's
has.
even
Go ahead.
exactly. There's even in Congo. There's even a documentary you can watch of raped women. You can watch it online. There is even there is a woman who went through rape, and then she opened, a place for women to come and to get healing because of the. She said on the interview, we no longer call it rape, we call it rape terrorism because it is that bad that women are being so raped at that level. It is so bad.
It is very bad,
It's
and like I
very
said,
bad.
that's why I say it's very irresponsible. If you want people to follow you, then be responsible with the information you're disseminating to people. This is not a game, right? At the end of the day, and I didn't really get into it, but a brother I knew, I checked on him because I knew he subscribed to Kevin Samuels, And he's like, well, hopefully the Lord receives him. And I'm like, even if the man said he was going to hell and taking you with him, right? I wasn't trying to be facetious, but that's actually what the man said. So I think we are so in our stupor. If I could find a better word, I would. But we're so taken with all of our iniquities to a certain degree and all of our transgressions as a collective that we can't even see when we're being led astray. We're actually egging the people on who are taking us off course and can actually verbalize and say that they're going to hell and they're taking you with them, and you're just energizing them, right? That shows more about the people than actually that individual. So I mean, that's something for us to consider as we continue. I'm gonna jump up off the soapbox now. If anybody has any last thoughts, if I find back that other video, I will. Another thing that shows me weirdly, for the youth, is some of these. I don't know if you guys have seen the loyalty test videos, but to see how quickly, I'll come and show some of those, how quickly some of these youths will just dishonor themselves and their relationships. It makes me think that something is wrong. Like, all they will hit on their mate's best friend. I'm like, what is wrong? I mean, these young children, they are off the chain.
Yeah, no,
They
yeah.
are. Have you seen them? I mean, have you seen those
Yeah,
videos?
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I know what
You
you're
know
talking
what
about.
I'm talking about?
Yeah,
They'd be like, "Oh, you want to Netflix and chill?" And be like, "Yeah, I won't tell nobody." And then 2 seconds later, they're agreeing. I'm like, first of all, y'all are dumb. Like,
yeah.
why would you do that? I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm too old school for my own good, but I
No,
think it's crazy.
there's definitely like a hyper sexualization
Yes.
of young, men and women. Yeah, I remember even like speaking of what you were saying earlier, and Nyasha, like man, well, I can't speak for women, but I know, man, me myself as a young man, I was pressured. I remember being mocked by my friends or even like girls and stuff like that when I was a virgin. They were like, "Oh, you still a virgin?" Whatever, whatever. So there is kind of a pressure for a
Mm-hmm.
young man to do that, and who do they do it with? They usually, you know, just like you said, find somebody to use just to get that off them. So,
Right.
I even like I remember one of my older homies telling me when I was young, he was like, "Man, you know what you need to do? You need to find you a little chick or something, and whatever, whatever." And I took his advice, and it ended up in a a long, terrible relationship. You know what I'm saying?
See?
But yeah, yeah,
Following terrible. I used to ask my homeboys when I was in school. I guess I was always like this. I was like, so tell me, and they all told me about, you know, the same thing you just said and that experience and how it's even the young men oftentimes it's not what they want, but because of social pressures, and it's usually oftentimes an older girl, right? And now
yeah,
you have soul ties with people who you shouldn't be in connection with. And so this also contributes to why people are not able to get into marriages and stay into them, because they have been bound to so many different people that it makes it difficult, right? If you don't get that off you, it makes it difficult to be in relationships and fully be present. And people don't realize the connection. They think one has nothing to do with the next, and it has everything to do with the next, you know. So maybe we'll talk about that at another time. But these children out here, hypersexualized ain't the word. I'm like, y'all are slow. Like, this is the person's best friend. You're gonna talk about, oh, she not here. Yeah, I'll come through and chill. What sense you make? How do
yeah.
you make sense? How do you, I mean, I don't know. But oh wait, I'll leave y'all with this. There was one where the girl was pregnant. This young girl is pregnant and she has her best friend next to her. So the guy does his spiel and he says, "Hey, you wanna do this loyalty test with her boyfriend?" And the friend is like, "I don't think that's a good idea." The pregnant one. So she's like, "Well, why are you running?" Looks in the phone of the pregnant girl. Her boyfriend is all in there. So the question is this the boyfriend's baby? How these people, where's the loyalty? You know, where is that's the problem? And if we don't fix it, I don't know what to say from here. I don't know what to say. People are
Yeah,
disloyal.
there is now. People just opportunists. That's all it comes down to. You know what I mean? Either it. I was about to say for the opportunity to move up. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I get the prettier girl, I get the better this, or I get, and sometimes it don't even be that. Sometimes it just be the opportunity. It don't have to be a better situation or nothing. They just want, oh, it's an opportunity. I'm gonna take that opportunity. Yeah,
Yeah, that's maybe we'll talk about that because are we really thinking? Because it's the opportunity to do what? Like you said, in a second, somebody's offering you something that you don't want, but you're accepting it just because it's being offered to you. I'm like, men cannot truly be this desperate. I refuse to believe that, brother.
I
and
believe it.
You
I,
believe it?
yeah,
I do believe that men, as I believe that men, we also train them like that. I also hear women. I remember when the whole thing happened with a singer who, you know, who did rape a child. There were a woman who actually said maybe this 14-year-old girl push him to do, you know.
Wow.
Yes, so I do believe that men, I'm sorry, I do believe men are that desperate when we give them older women to use until they're in their 40s, able to get married. And I think that I believe people say if women have too much men, she's not able to be loyal to a husband. But I think that this is more on the men too. If men have too many women, I think that they are unable. I don't know. I do believe it does impact the man, but those are things we need to be studying. We always look at the woman is unable to do this, but we never look at it on the man perspective.
yeah. No, what you're saying is absolutely true. Like, and maybe y'all don't. Well, maybe not. Amuna doesn't know this, but the young girls know this. You know what I'm saying? So these dudes are complaining. These dudes are complaining like, oh, she just want me for this, that, third. She just want my money. She just want that, that. Yeah, because she knows you desperate and she know you willing to get that up. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be a market for what they call thoughts if there weren't
Right.
people, you know what I mean, willing to acquiesce to that. So
Right.
Yes,
amen.
Wow.
they are that desperate, and women
Wow.
are using their body to get, to
We're
get
gonna have to come back and have that conversation titled "Are Men That Desperate?" Really, because
Oh,
this
they about
makes
to
no
come
sense.
out the woodwork for you. That title right there. What? The room gonna fill up so fast. I knew Amuna was a feminist.
Listen, because I'm like, is this a? Sometimes I watch them. It's the younger children too, and I'm like, this got to be a joke. This can't be serious. Like, you can't just, hey, you wanna hook up, and then they're like, yeah, without a second thought. I'm like,
But
bruh,
listen to the framework of what Kevin Samuels is putting up, right? This shows you the level of desperation. He's not telling dudes to become high value men to become leaders in their society or whatever, whatever. He's telling them to become a high value man so that they can get that nice looking lady. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
That's the end goal. That's the
yeah,
end game. You know what I'm saying? Like that's all. So if I can get that without doing that with whoever, you know what I mean? Then okay, yeah, sure, I'll do that. You know, like it's I don't know. It's just
wow.
I'm saying I because I like to put myself in situations, but no, I'm not trying to be in those situations. But
So
yeah,
it goes
no,
back to lack of self control because
yeah,
if the lower extremities, if the lower head is the one that's thinking and getting men in the positions that they are, then who is really to blame? Like, why are you blaming women when you had the choice not to comply? You know what I mean? You have, because you're the giver, so you have the choice to say, no, I'm not dealing with you. So how much of a pull that, like, they say women submit to men and men submit to your desires. You know what I mean? Like, there's a problem here in looking for someone else to be, and this is throughout history, to be chased while you are unfettered, which also leads to more issues. So the issue starts where you understand what I'm saying? There's something there. There's something there.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Let's see, John. I'm gonna read one of John's comments and then I'm gonna wind it down. John says, Imuna, you're disingenuous. These women are having what? Oh, he's putting that for the thing with random guys after a 10-minute come. What's disingenuous about that? I don't understand. What's disingenuous about What? I'm not getting the connection. The mic is always open, by the way. I'm not getting the connection.
See,
They
this is
cannot
proof. This is
have
proof,
something.
Amuna.
Hmm.
This is proof that you don't listen, and all of y'all women don't listen to men. Cause y'all been calling John for I don't know how long. His name is J. Joe. It don't say John. Y'all just named him John out of nowhere.
I just
Like,
renamed him John.
yeah, you did, all of y'all. And then he just go. He don't say nothing. He's just like, yes, I'm John.
His name is John today. J. Joe. It looked like the. I don't know, John. He ain't never say my name is not John. So I was. It looked like
It
John
might
to
be.
me.
Uh,
JJ. I don't know. Tell us what your name is, and we'll work from there. How about that? Um, but we'll come back. I don't know the part about what women are willing to do. Again, if man is the leader, you can't tell me what the woman is willing to do. If the man is not willing to do it, then it's not being done. You understand? If he's not willing to do it, it's not being done. Again, let's stop passing the buck. You know what I mean? It's not being done. She cannot make him do it. He has to want to. There has to be a desire, unless she roofied him or gave him some type of Mickey, right? So again, here goes what back to what Aleph was saying in the beginning of the conversation about the blame game. She can do all of the things that she's doing. If he says, "Nah, ma, it's not going down," then it's not happening. Aleph, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that not how it works?
that's exactly how it works.
Huh?
I got the ultimate power in the situation.
Okay. If he
You know what's crazy? I was arguing about this with Rick Wallace of all people, because like he caught me off guard, because I was like, yeah, yeah, take responsibility. Then he said something like that. I forget what it was, and I was like, hold on a second, Rick. Like, if I don't want to sleep with her, there's nothing that she could do. You know what I
nothing.
mean? There's nothing. It stopped right there. You know what I'm saying? And he was like, "No, well." So I forget what he said, but we got into. But it was a court. You know what I mean? Like, it was a
Right.
polite back and forth. We didn't get no heated. But I
It's
was like, "No, I
nothing.
disagree with you on that point." Yeah,
Nothing she can do. So all of this, she could walk out in her drawers, right? If he say nah, it's not happening. So therefore, if you want the power, then use it in governing your own self, not in trying to govern the other person. You understand? For instance, I gotta take it back. Y'all like civil rights. Back in 1960, listen, when they said we are not riding this bus, we have the power, right? We are not boarding this bus and we're not giving you our money. The bus could have come, opened the doors, let out the air condition, gave you free rides. There was nothing they could do to put you on the bus if you didn't want to go on the bus. So if you say you have the power is in self-government. So you can't give in to anybody who passes and then be like, she made me do it. She can govern herself and he can govern himself. But that may be for another day.
nowadays the bus is pulling up. The bus driver is rolling her eyes at you and pulling off while you hopping in, and they still like, wait.
I'm telling you. And a lot of guys, they feel like you're disempowered. I think what the manosphere is doing to a certain degree is making the man feel empowered, right? In a weird kind of way, from what I'm hearing, in a
But
weird kind of way.
it's not really empowerment though.
No, it's
it's
not.
it's like
Yeah.
it's just voice to the quote unquote voiceless. It's not really
Right,
empowerment, because
right.
you're just, I mean, you're placating that victimhood. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, like I'm saying, it's the feeling of being. It's just like a certain feminist movement. It's the feeling of being empowered, but you're still basing it on trying to manipulate the other party to a certain degree, which is still like you're saying disempowerment,
Yeah.
right? The real empowerment is self government. I'm gonna stick on that. I've been saying that for years. I'm gonna stand on that one. It's self government. Everything else, like I watch my children every day, right? And you look at human behavior from a little seed to where it's going. When the one person starts to try to tell the other person what they should be doing and that's where the beef starts. But yet that same person won't do it for themselves. And that's where we say, well, here comes the hypocrisy, here comes the this, here comes the that. You know what I mean? So, human nature is funny, but there's some things that we could be doing for ourselves that we're not, because we don't want to put the effort and the time in. That's what it boils down to. But with that said, I'm about to go watch 90 Day Fiance.
All right now.
Yo, it's been a long day. I'm about to go watch some 90 Day Fiance because they have a Muslim couple that I need to do some research about.
Some research, huh?
Yeah, Lamine, I'm about to go do some research,
Yeah.
quote
Okay.
unquote.
All right.
Yeah, they have this. It's interesting because this Muslim couple, the guy is from Kansas and the girl is coming from Trinidad. And he
Hmm.
doesn't he hides his resources because he wants to test her loyalty to see whether or not she loves him for him and not him money. So
Hmm.
this is some of that red pill kind of vibration, right? So he took
Hmm.
her to this broke down house, mildew with mold, that used to be his family house, to see how she was going to react. I thought that was interesting, you know. But I'll let y'all know how it goes.
Maybe it'll work for him. I don't know.
I don't know. If somebody did that to you, how would you feel?
If they
If
you got
they
to
if
prove
they
my
lied
loyalty.
about if they lied, I see that a lot in Nollywood movies. The prince would lie and act like, he's a housekeeper to see if the person's gonna love them for them. You know, some
Man,
Amber Alert.
yeah.
They be
Honestly, I
having.
don't know. If I had it like that, I might do that myself. Honestly, I don't know.
Lamina is
For real.
funny.
Might just drive an old Honda Civic all the time. Have women laughing at me like, all right, yeah, sure.
You would test them and pretend you didn't have to see.
No, honestly, I'm just honestly, that'll probably be my. That's how I would operate anyways. Like I've never been like a flashy dude, nothing
Flashy
like
type of person.
that. Yeah, so
Wait, Judah, you blocked somebody? Who you blocked? You blocked John? She said I should unblock and apologize. I'm done. I don't know what y'all arguing about. But everybody, thank you for coming by. John wants us to watch, what is this? Business YouTube. I don't know what's going on with Business YouTube, but John be wanting us to go over there. Have you ever been, Lamine, over at Business YouTube?
nah, nah. Sound. I don't know. I might check it out. He trying to John. I'm calling him John now too. He trying to get us on our high value stuff. See, I respect that. That's solutions, right, John?
He's talking about he's talking about the women you need to hear. Look, y'all.
Okay.
I don't know.
That's so it's it sounds so alluring, right? The woman.
His name is
Oh,
Joe. Joh is not Joe, not John. It's Joe. Y'all are
oh, that's a real
funny.
name. Oh, somebody else said that. I can't read the comments.
Now I'm gonna have to change it to Joe after I've been saying John for like 100 million broadcasts, yo.
Oh, you can see. I can see the comments. I didn't even know. I'm
Yeah,
like
you can see it
I
at
knew
the
that.
side. Y'all are
Um,
funny. I'm gonna come check y'all again um sometime this week. I pray everybody doing well, and we'll talk again. Thank everybody for tuning in.
all right. Good night.
All right, good night.
Bye.